Big giant oak tree in my front yard. I've got witnesses that say lightning struck it. I don't know. I saw a lot of woodpecker holes in it. That's all I know. And it was dead. It fell down with a mighty crash. I know how David felt. Success! I didn't die. Because I thought, whoa, this thing is massive. It could crush me. I feel good. So last night, Michelle was telling me what's it about? Is it about David and Goliath? And at first, I was trying to weave that story into the sermon, but I didn't get a chance to. There was a couple of things, and I don't want to go too long. I mean, I could just talk for hours and hours on Old Testament stories that illustrate daily life, or things, character traits that we need to have in our church and in our own lives today. I don't know if there was a theme thing that was found. Did Eduardo ever find the theme song that I asked? Could you play that now then? Drum roll, please. Oh, does this sound familiar? Faith, the final frontier. Wow, that was stimulating. I think we've had enough, right? Yeah. Everybody okay? You got to take a little heart pill or anything? Whoa, that was good. Wow, we'll have to do that again. Thanks, Mike. That was perfect sound. Woo. I did feel like David there. I felt strong. I'm taking on Goliath again. Faith, the final frontier. I want to speak on the subject of faith today. Did you get that? Faith, yes. And, it's a subject of all things future. Sometimes, if you see things, then you know what's right in front of you. I know that if I step off here, I'm going to fall because I see the step right there. But there's things in the future that I don't know that are going to happen. Things that I really can't see, but I can believe. The future holds for all of us something that we have not yet experienced, and yet we have faith that tomorrow will come with all of the treasures of the unknown. Now, some of you get a little scared when I say the unknown. Why? Because you like it to be known. You don't like the unknown because it's unknown. Well, I have a story in the Old Testament that illustrates this whole thing of faith and the unknown and how it works for us. So let me start with this. In 2 Kings, yeah, that's the Old Testament. I went back in time, didn't I? I'm not preaching out of the New Testament today. It may be the first time since this church started. I'm in the Old Testament with Elisha. The prophet Elisha? 2 Kings, chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. There's a little story in there that really stimulates me and stimulates my faith gland to look into the unknown and see that there is blessing, that there is good stuff ahead. It goes like this. If you've got your Bibles, it's verses 1 through 7. The wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord, but now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." Elisha replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "Your servant has nothing here at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." Elisha said, "Go around and ask all of your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side." Well, she left him and shut the door behind her and her sons, and they brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all of the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he replied, "There is not a jar left." Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Go and sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left." This is a cute little story about a small family in financial trouble. If you've never received a call from a debt collector, you are truly blessed. You must have a silver spoon in your mouth. For most of us, we've gotten calls from debt collectors. Even sometimes it's like, we just forgot to pay a bill, right? But they don't forget. Something comes up on their computer and said, call Allan Detwiler. He owes $53.25 and it is 1 day past due. I mean, they've got this little system going where they'll call us, right, when they want their money to remind us. And sometimes if it goes a little later than that, they can get a little nasty, can't they? Sometimes we forget. Sometimes we're in circumstances beyond our control. Isn't that true? We find ourselves, something happened. We couldn't help it. We couldn't change it. Look what happened to the widow here. Her husband died. How is she going to correct that? And he owed money to somebody. How is she going to fix that? She had nothing to do with the checkbook. Well, I don't know if they had checkbooks back there, but they probably had a money bag of some sort with stuff in it. So the husband in this situation, in this scenario, would have been the main provider for the family. He would have provided the funding. He would have provided the food. He would have provided the protection if anybody was going to come and harm his family, right? That's what they did back in those days. So without him there, she had 2 sons, little boys, I guess. They weren't able to take the place of dad. They weren't like, 18 and know everything and ready to go out on their own. Am I striking a chord here? 18, know everything? Yes. So anyhow, they probably were smaller, and they were all very dependent on the income and the provision of dad and husband. And he was no longer there. So her plea for help to the man of God, to Elisha, was totally appropriate. Have you ever heard the phrase, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip? Doesn't that mean that you can't get what's not there, right? You just can't get it. Well, this creditor was trying to repossess her boys. And that is a blood relative, so in a way, they were trying to squeeze blood out of a bad debt. They were trying to get her boys. The widow was helpless against the creditors. So who did she cry out to? The prophet of God, Elisha. She must have had faith in the prophet to fix this bad situation she was in. He must have been looking like a solution. Where do you go when you find yourself behind the 8 ball, so to speak? When people are asking you to squeeze blood out of a turnip. Where's your first place you go? Maybe if you're young, you go to mom and dad. Hey, I need some money. I'm in a situation here. Or maybe even if you get older, mom and dad may still have more than you. You could go to mom and dad, or you could go to the bank. Sometimes when Michelle and I have been behind that 8 ball and we just needed to get a little extra to get over the hump, we'd go to the bank and they said, no, you owe too much already. We're not giving you any more. And we go, oh man. Then we go up, right? And we go, oh Lord, can you help me out here? I want you to know that Michelle and I have never gone without a meal. We have every reason to believe that God has been faithful in every circumstance in our life. Oh, we might have gotten worried. We might have had a few how are we going to get through this moments? But that's human. Well, as we focus on this widow, I'm noticing a few things that relate to me and to our church here. Number one, she had enough faith to reach out to God for help. She had that much faith. Now, that doesn't take much faith, I don't think, to know that God is above us, that He's stronger than us, that He's able to do more than we can for ourselves. But that's a little bit of faith. But that got her in the right direction. That little bit of faith got her to look up and reach out to God. Number two, she cares for her family and their future. She cares. It's not like, okay, take the boys. All right, good. Does that satisfy the debt? Oh, here, you want me to? Now, some of you have had children, not you young people, but some of you have had children where that wasn't a bad thing. You want my son? Sure, take him. Yeah, please take him. Will that satisfy you? You can have him. But most of us have got a very protective thing about our families. So she cared about her family and their future. And number 3 I find in this story is she had very little in assets to assist God for her future. She had very little to offer. What are you going to give God? He's got everything. She had just this little bit of oil in the jar. I don't know about any of you, but this story is our New Life Christian Church story. What do you mean by that, Pastor? I'm glad you asked. Our church is unable to pay a salary for a full-time or a part-time minister. Most churches pay for the minister and staff, and that's all coming right out of the church treasury, which, you know, they post on the wall or on the internet or something weekly, how many thousands of dollars they take in a week. Our church is unable to feed the poor of our neighborhood because we have very little in the way of space or money or even people to do that kind of ministry. We can't do like the larger churches in this area with big outreach projects of this sort or that sort because we don't have the funds and we don't have the people. And honestly, the vision has just not been cast for that yet. We are stuck like that widow. We're stuck. We can't go forward with much. We just accept what we have and, oh well, this is what we have. God, thank you for what we have. But I feel like sometimes we are stuck with a few. Maybe some of you feel the same way. We have no large facility or large bank account. We have no elders. We are like that widow whose husband died and left her to fend for herself. We had a big group and then we don't. And we made a call for everybody to come together and they just didn't. They just went somewhere else. So we thought, you know, let's do what we can, and that is what we do. This is depressing. If we had no faith nor a God who cares, we would in fact be stuck. But I'm not stuck, and neither are you. I'm not stuck. I don't feel stuck. The widow wasn't stuck because she had faith in God. I have faith in God that we can accomplish anything for the glory of God. And I mean anything. What stops us is the same thing that stopped the widow. Elisha told her the way to fix her problem. He left the details, though, to her and her sons. Her faith was alive, but smaller than God's. God left it up to her, and God leaves it up to us. Elisha said to the widow, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Those were all the instructions she was given. Sounds kind of strange, doesn't it? Really? That's going to fix this? That's going to keep these guys off of my boys? You know, they're going to be here any day. That doesn't sound like a job. But she believed him. So I have a question. How many jars? I think she had the same. How many jars should I get? How many neighbors should I visit? I don't know how many neighbors there were to visit, and I don't know how many jars those neighbors had, but Elisha said, all your neighbors. Don't ask for a few. Don't ask for a few jars. He was telling her, go for broke. Everybody. Go out as far as you can and don't miss anybody. Ask them for all their jars. Come on, guys. That's a lot of work, right? Does that sound like a lot of work? If somebody came in here and said, you know, Javier comes over and says, hey, I see what's going on in your church here. You need to go out and you need to knock on every single door in all of Valrico. Whoa. That's and Plant City.
Yeah.
And Seffner. And don't forget Valrico, Seffner area. Wow. That would be quite a task, right? Well, if we believe that it was God speaking through Javier, then we would say, okay, I guess we're gonna start. We're gonna try. Well, I have a mission story to tell you. Just a personal story. I know you probably get tired of my personal stories, but I have a bunch. I'm an old guy, been around the block a couple times. Many years ago, I helped a friend of mine start a mission in Jamaica. Jamaica was far enough away. I think I've told you the story how I got involved with Caribbean Christian Construction. But this is a particular unique story of faith that I learned on the job there in the mission field. We would go with money And we would take up an offering from our mission fund, whatever church we were at, and we would take it down there. We would buy building materials. Sometimes we would hire some of the local guys to help us in things we couldn't do. But we'd also take people from the church that just wanted to go help somebody out of the goodness of their heart. You know, what God has blessed you with, you go bless somebody else. So we were down in Jamaica, and we'd already done quite a few churches. This was one of the last one. It was the last one that I did personally. But they've continued. The mission has continued since I had pulled out and started preaching full time. But there was this. The place was in this really remote town called Moco. It was on the top of a mountain, and it was in the middle of nowhere, just on the top of a mountain. It was hard to get to, and there was this the worst church in the whole country of Jamaica. This was the oldest and the worst. I mean, it was built around, I think they said, like the 1800s. It had a stone foundation that went way down. It was built on the side of a hill. It was very unique, but it was made out of wood. How bad was the church building, you asked me? I'm glad you asked. It was so bad that the electric meter that was nailed onto the side of the wall had rotted and fallen off into the road. And the electric company disconnected them and said, "You got to fix this place." So we show up and we see the worst church in the whole country. And we go, this is where we ought to be. Thank you, God, for showing us where we ought to be. So we started. We brought some money. We brought some guys, just a couple of guys. And we started down on the lower level first to build a couple of bathrooms. Because there was an outhouse in the yard, and it was horrible. And we just thought, I know, like, we're Americans, and that's a third world country. They think things are normal there, that we go, oh my goodness, who could do that? I mean, where's the towel holder, and where's the paper towels and the hand dryer blower and all that? Where's all this stuff? No, it's block. It's got a toilet on top of a hole. And if you can find some newspaper handy, that's about all you get. You got to bring your own TP in there. So it was bad. We thought, let's help these folks grow their church with a proper facility, one for men, one for ladies, and we were going to put showers in there. So we went ahead and dug all this stuff up. We built the block walls around it, and we were ready to pour the slab. Well, as it turns out, in this particular mission, most of the churches, maybe down in South America it's the same way, they've got a pile of blocks out here in the yard that they use when they get time and money, and they'll go put a few blocks up. They've got some rebar sitting out there rusting that hadn't been used yet, that's been sitting out there sometimes for years, all rusted up. And they have this pile of gravel and a pile of sand, and they go to the store and buy a bag of cement, Portland cement, and they mix their own. They sit there in wheelbarrows or however they can mix it. So this particular church had a very old pile of sand, a very old pile of gravel, and while we were taking from those resources, we had bought the cement, we noticed that there was, the pastor was up there with the wheelbarrow, stout Jamaican fellow, really nice man, very stout. He'd take the wheelbarrow up the hill and he'd shovel that gravel in there, and we were pouring concrete. We were doing good, getting those floors poured, excited. Get down to almost the last of it, and the pastor comes back and says, Brother Allan, we don't have any more gravel. We can't stop. We're in the middle of pouring concrete. Has anybody poured concrete? You can't stop. You can't just let it sit there. It'll be a mess. It'd be horrible. I'm not programmed like that. We have to finish this. So we said a little prayer, and we said, send him back up the hill. Pastor, go up the hill and find us some gravel, okay? We're busy over here mixing concrete. You got to find us some gravel. So he went back up there and he started grubbing through the grass, and he came back with another wheelbarrow full of gravel. We said, oh, great. So we thought, maybe this will finish. We're mixing, and all of a sudden we're pouring, and it's down to the last little bit. And we said, hey, man, you got to go up, and you got to find us some more gravel. We're not done yet. We're almost done. And so he said, there's nothing up there, guys. We said, you're not. Where's your faith? Where is your faith? There is some gravel up there you haven't found yet. You need to go back up. So he goes up, and he comes back with this wheelbarrow full of gravel, with a little grass, a little clump of dirt, little bit. He went around, he got every piece of gravel. We did that last load, and it finished the concrete slab on that slab. So the man gets up, the pastor gets up, and we're all just like, God is so good. How did this happen? We ran out of gravel. We shouldn't have been able to finish the floor. Maybe that seems like a little thing to you, but I took 2 weeks off of work without pay, and I went over there with other people from church, and we didn't have but a limited set of money, and we bought all of the materials we were going to buy, and this was like make it or break it, and I didn't want to go back home with a half poured or even not quite finished floor for the next team to come in behind. So to me, it was a big deal to get the thing finished one way or the other. And they don't have hardware stores like we have. We'll just go down to Home Depot and buy a bag of rocks, right? Can't do that. You just can't do that. So this was a big deal for us. So the pastor and me and the other fellows we're doing a little happy dance on top of the concrete. We're just so delighted that the Lord has given us, delivered us, and given us this blessing. And so the pastor, he comes up with this thing. He says, "Hey man, big things are going in Amoko." I got to think about that. I said, man, God's blessing got this guy excited. Have you ever heard of a dead-end job? Believe me, on top of a mountain in a little teeny village in the oldest and dirtiest and nastiest church that's falling down is a dead-end job. For this guy to get excited was no less than a serious miracle from God. No less than a serious miracle. And it energized him to give God the glory. And when he got energized, all the other people in the church came in and wanted to start pitching in and helping with the next level and the next level and the next level, until they finally, it was several years later, maybe 6 years later, they had a 2,700 square foot with a brand new zinc roof, beautiful rafters, a concrete baptistry, windows throughout, beautiful handmade doors out of Jamaican lumber. Oh, it was a beautiful, beautiful place. And to this day, it's still a very beautiful place and a great witness to what God can do with very little. With very little. So big things of Juan and Amoko. Well, guess what I say? I say big things. That is interpreted in English. Big things are going on in Moko. That's what he was saying in Jamaica, in case you didn't get that. Some people don't know that, but we would say it. We actually put it on the back of our t-shirts. We went over there with whatever church we were from and whatever mission trip and year it was. Moko Church of Christ, 2014, was the last one Horizon did. And right on the back, big things of Guan in Moko. And we would wear those on the island. And we would go to eat in bars and stuff, because that's where they would feed you, and you had to go in the bars. And some of the rowdy guys, they would say, "What big things are Guan in Amoko?" And we would tell them, God is building a church with no rock and with people from a foreign country. And also the people up there on top in that village have come together to do an amazing thing. And they go, yeah, man, I'm going to come visit you. I want to see what big things are going on up there in Moko. I'm telling you, there was nothing there. And now it is a big thing in Moko, on top of a mountain and close to nothing. And God is doing serious work in that area of Jamaica. And I am so glad that I was able to see that and be part of that. So, what about us? What about us? 2 Corinthians 5:7 says this, "For we live by faith and not by sight." You get that? Who was going up there by sight to find gravel that anybody could see? Mervyn went up there to no gravel and came back with gravel. Is that not a message? Wow, we live by faith, not by sight. Hindsight is 20/20. You ever heard that? You look in the rearview mirror, you can see clearly where you've been. Once you've been through the whole thing, you go, oh, pretty cool. And most of the time, if you're really looking, you can see, look what God did back there. Isn't that amazing? I didn't see that coming. I didn't know that was what was going on. And I didn't know it would turn out that way. But now I do. Just like me, looking back at the gravel and how we got that done. Faith is not being able to see the result, but believing with God that all things are possible. Have you ever said to yourself, if I only had enough faith, I would be better off now? If I had just enough faith? I'm like Frank Sinatra. Regrets, I've had a few. You know that song? And he did it his way. Regrets, I've had a few. Do you believe that you can do more than you think you can? Do you really believe that? Do you believe that you are capable, with God's help, of doing more than you ever have? Look at what happened to the widow, man. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, bring me another one. She was into it at that point. But the faith was not big enough to have gone beyond and gotten more jars. Do you see? If she'd have brought 1,000,000 jars, she'd have had 1,000,000 ways to sell her oil. Not just 500 or 200 or 100, whatever her faith was. The only thing that stopped her boys and her from being zillionaires was their faith to keep on going and keep on believing that God would provide in His time. It's the only thing that stopped them. They didn't believe. They didn't believe. They believed that was enough. They were satisfied with less. And then the boy replied to the widow's question, there's not a jar left. And then the saddest part of this whole story, then the oil stopped flowing. How sad is that? We see it now. Okay, we're on this side, right? If I was going to go back in time and say, hey, widow, don't stop. Send them boys to every single neighbor. And if we get done with every neighbor in this community, go on to the next community and ask everybody there. You don't understand how it's going to work. But when you find out, you're going to be really glad you went to all that extra work. Listen to me. Big things are going on in Valrico and Brandon and Seffner and Plant City and areas around here. What is stopping us? Us and our faith is the only thing in our way. That's it. If we can believe it, we can do it because God wants us to do it. Big things are going on in Valrico. God-sized things. Things that should not be possible, but just believe this. Ephesians 3 Verse 20 says this, now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. Do you get that? It's not our power that's working within us. It's His power working within us. And that's how He is able to do immeasurably. How much is immeasurably? How much is immeasurable oil? I don't know. It's immeasurable. It's too big. It's just, you can't measure it. It just keeps on flowing. It's immeasurable. If you need something and it's just a little bit, God's able, out of the immeasurable blessing that He has, He's able to meet that need in full. Where is your faith? And once you realize how powerful the Lord is, then you can take this next verse, because it says, to Him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, and that's you and me. And as many children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren until He comes again to bring us home with Him. Throughout all generations, forever and ever, and we could say it again, and ever and ever and ever, until we finally come to the end and we say, amen, amen. Take a deep breath and say thank you to God for His immeasurable ability in your life. You see, faith really says that God does the heavy lifting. But our mind has got to comprehend how big He is and not be limited by what we see through our eyes. We can't see much when we're trying to see. We can't see what He sees. We can't know what He knows. But we can depend on this, that He loves us enough to do whatever we need, what is best for us. May not always agree with our assessment of what's best for us, right? Well, what's best for me, Lord, is to win the lottery. What's up with that? How many times you prayed, can I win the lottery? Oh, I will build a great big massive church. We'll find 30 acres. No, 100 acres. No, 1,000 acres. I know, I got to be nuts. You know, sometimes it can get out of hand, right, Javier? Or can it? Or does it? Is it you and I who are limiting God? That widow would come today and stand up here and testify to us that we should never be short-sighted, that we should always be stretching God and His will and His work beyond what we can see and what we think and what we can measure. So I ask you today, how much faith have you got? And what do you do with it? Do we pray for those that are on death's door? Yes. God's will be done, whatever that is. We don't get in the way of that. We just ask Him what we want to ask Him. And then we go and we try to do the immeasurable thing, which is kind of impossible because we're human beings. You know, we've got an idea how far we can stretch ourselves. But I really think that every great church has broken through a barrier that other churches see a barrier and they can't go beyond it. That we need to be the church that does not recognize any barriers, but lets God get in front of us and take care of our enemies, take care of the things that would be our obstacles, and take those things and turn them into our benefits. I'm asking you to think like God today. I'm asking you to place your faith in a place where you are able to see things that aren't seeable. That's what faith is. You see things that aren't there. You have a vision of things that have not happened yet, and you work toward that vision. Thank you for putting up with me. I'm a little bit of a wild child, and I recognize that. One of my greatest faults is that I am an optimist and my rose-colored glasses get in my way. But I'm telling you, I think God has brought me here to see something that maybe you can't see. To not say, no, we can't, but to say, we'll try. We can try. Who knew that karaoke was going to be such a hit? You know, who knew that? Who knew that we would get along with our host church so well? I mean, who knew that we'd have a church van all beat up and have it painted and brought back to us in such great shape? Who knew we'd get people in our neighborhood to come and join us and be part of our church? And I don't know which one of you knows who's next. How many hundreds are out there waiting for something? I'm telling you, my greatest fault is that I don't give it enough time to show me where my faith has taken me. I give up before the time. That's my greatest fault. I hate that about myself. I give up before I've explored every avenue or waited on the Lord. And as people of God with faith, we've got to wait on the Lord.